The Portonaccio Sanctuary is an archaeological site on the western side of the plateau on which the ancient Etruscan city of Veio, north of Rome, Italy, was located. The site takes its name from the locality within the village of Isolofanes, part of Municipio XX, city of Rome. The site was occupied by an ancient sanctuary complex erected in a cutting on the side of the hill, over which the city wall of Veio towered. One of the richest sources of Etruscan artifacts, pottery and other objects inscribed in Etruscan and terracotta statuary and other decorative elements, it contained two main structures. One a sanctuary dedicated to the goddess Minerva and the other a temple that had statues of Hermes, Hercule, Aplu and Leton on the roof, which has come to be regarded as a temple of Apollo. Next to the temple of Apollo was a rectangular pool, a well provided water. The site has been left wooded, as it was in ancient times, when surrounded by a sacred grove. The site was excavated in modern times by Massimo Pallottino in the 1940s and published decades later by the first and second generation of his students. The roof of the Temple of Apollo has been restored on one side. It hangs over the site on a geometrical framework of steel rods. The sanctuary of Minerva is under roof nearby. Otherwise, only the foundation walls of the complex survive. In ancient times, it was surrounded by its own wall. The sanctuary to Minerva. The Portonaccio Sanctuary of Minerva was the first Tuscan type, i.e., Etruscan, temple erected in Etruria. The reconstruction proposed for it in 1993 by Giovanni Colonna together with Germano Fogliar presents a square 60 feet construction on a low podium and divided into a pronaos with two columns making up the facade between entrances, 24 feet deep in a group in the back made up of three 30 feet deep adjacent cells. The 21-foot columns were made of stuccoed tuff as were the walls, which inside the pronaos were decorated with various paintings on clay panels. The roof was in wood covered with polychrome terracotta. The terracotta was placed through a refined system of syllabic abbreviations and they were integrated with bronze inserts and a generous profusion of plastic inserts, mostly modeled by hand, among which a splendid series of grand antifixes with the heads of gorgons, manads and satyrs. The Temple of Apollo. This sanctuary, among the most ancient and venerated on all of Etruria, was outside of the city in a road leading from the city of Veio to the Tyrrhenian coast, and the famous Veio saline mines ran through it. Its most ancient nucleus tied to the cult of the goddess Minerva, and a small temple, a square altar, a portico and stairs from the road were built in about 530 BC in her honor. The three-cell temple with the polychrome terracotta decorations was erected in about 510 BC in the western part of the sanctuary. Adjacent to the temple, there was a great pool with a tunnel and a fence that enclosed the sacred woods. Heracles, the hero made god dear to tyrants, and maybe also Jupiter, whose image we have to imagine on the central wall of the temple, were tied to Apollo. By the middle of the 5th century BC, all interventions on the temple are concluded and it begins a slow decline while the structures sacred to Minerva are renovated on the eastern sector of the sanctuary. The starting up again of the cult worshipping Minerva, which continued also after the conquering of Veio by Rome, is documented by a splendid series of votive statues of classic and late classic style boys, such as the famous head Malavolta, as to indicate the important role of the goddess in the rituals of the passage from adolescence to adulthood that signaled the fundamental phases of the life of the members of the aristocratic families of Veio. In the 2nd century BC, the tuff mine that destroyed the central area of the sanctuary was opened, causing damage to the temple and the sliding down of material downhill. The recovery of the fragments of the sanctuary determined the start-up of excavations in 1914, which continued after the discovery of the famous statue of Apollo in 1916.